Now, while my voice may sound completely messed up because I recently came back from one of my best friend's weddings last night, I have good news and I have great news for all of you Necromancer enjoyers out there. The good news is that with all the crazy buffs coming in Season 5, Bone Spirit Necromancer, which was already by and large the strongest Necro build, has effectively doubled in power. This thing is going to be an absolute massive unit throughout the entirety of Season 5. We're going to be clearing insane levels of the pit on this thing. The better news is, I actually already have the complete build planner ready for you down in the comments. Did you hear that voice crack? That was terrible. As well as in the description of this video. But what if I told you I had even better news for you? The Bone Spirit Endgame Necromancer build guide on Maxroll is already updated, and you can go review every single change I've made to it. This includes updates to the skill tree, the Paragon, your endgame gear setup, gear recommendations, how you're going to be scaling your damage. I've included some really cool optimizations into this build, and I'll go over that in just a quick second. But every single part of the guide that you typically like to look through, whether it's the skill tree and gameplay, the Paragon section, all the way down into the endgame variants, what types of aspects you're going to be looking for, the different uniques and mythic uniques that you can be using, as well as the variants bringing you from starter, leveling all the way up to 100, endgame in the pit, and then even a speed farming variant as well for people who are looking to either very quickly clear through tier 101 or just go out into the Helltide or whatever the best farming strategy is. Maybe it's the Infernal Hordes. But again, every single part of the guide has been updated, fully including every single stat that you personally need to be able to maximize your own gameplay and the potential for this build. Now, I did touch on a pretty interesting new addition to the build guide and something almost completely new to Bone Spirit. This is something that in the end of Season 4 was a very slight optimization that was being made, but I'm trying to push this to the max. Let's go ahead and head over to the planner so you can see these things in real time. But again, the Maxroll build guide is completely updated. I'll include a link down to that as well. Go ahead and check it out. You want to be fully up to date with all of the new meta considerations, so when you're walking into Season 5, you know exactly what you're building towards. So as a quick overview, the end game version of Bone Spirit is an overpowered Bone Spirit build using the Banished Lord's Talisman. Now, there have been changes to Banished Lord's Talisman. Most notably, it has lost its resource generation, which is going to hurt a lot, but it's gained attack speed as well as additional ranks to core skill. We have some minions out, as well as counting on Bone Prison, which count as minions for the purposes of Requiem aspect, to be able to get a huge amount of maximum essence, hitting at least 275 on each cast. So every single time you cast Bone Spirit, it will overpower. You're going to be looking to use the new Path of Triangle unique boots, which will increase the size of our Bone Prison, making it count as up to 10 minions, which is 70 essence just by itself. And then it's also going to be firing individual bone splinters, which you can actually double the rate that they fire by getting up to 100% chance for bone splinters to cast twice, meaning that every single time that you cast Bone Prison, you can trigger 60 bone splinters, which will increase your maximum essence by 2 per bone splinter, so that's 120 maximum essence. In reality, with just that alone in Requiem, you probably don't even need to use minions at all. We might end up sacrificing the Reaper minions in their entirety, which would then allow you to use Sacrificial Aspect to get even more crit chance to save up on some skill points and stats on gear, and then a massive boost to Overpower from sacrificing Bone Mages, and a massive boost to critical strike damage from sacrificing Iron Golem. I'll be playing around with that once I have all the items online, just to see whether or not it adds to the clunkiness of the build, or if it's just as smooth as before, and then we'll make that change. Interestingly enough, Shaco has also been changed so that it now gives maximum resource, meaning that you can effectively use it on the build, whereas previously you really couldn't. Now, sadly, the current Shaco had resource generation and it's losing that. So losing 2 sources of resource generation is going to hurt the build even further. That means that there's a universe where we end up not using Shaco, depending on how well we're able to manage our resource, and we would instead use a legendary helmet with maximum resource, cooldown reduction, as well as essence per second. Then we would free up another aspect slot. But we would lose out on damage reduction, and we would also lose out on the +4 skill ranks here. While most of the build is going to look pretty similar to what it did previously, we're most notably going to swap over to a mace, since a mace has implicit overpower damage, and it's just as fast as a one-handed scythe or sword. We're going to fully implement the Bone Splinters cast twice temper. We're obviously going to be using the new aspect Imprisoned Spirit, which basically just says nearly double your total damage because your Bone Spirit triggers twice, and the second one does a whopping 70% of the base damage. And obviously we're going to be using the much improved Blood Moon Breaches, which are now going to give 150% damage bonus. The big change though, the thing that I alluded to when we were actually looking at the build guide, is the inclusion of attack speed as a stat that we're looking to get both on both of our rings and the new Banished Lord's Talisman, which naturally gets it. If you can actually get a greater affix attack speed, no masterwork crits, but a greater affix attack speed on a 12 out of 12 masterwork piece of gear for your Banished Lord's Talisman and both of your rings, we theoretically, because not all of this is necessarily set in stone yet, cut off basically like 14 frames of animation for every single skill that we cast while using a one-handed weapon. That's why you'll see that I'm recommending reaching a total of 51.8 attack speed on the build, but a bare minimum of 40.2% attack speed. Now, if these numbers don't end up being exactly right, you're still going to net a huge amount of benefit. Even a single attack speed roll on your gear would cut 4 frames off of all of your animations, meaning every 15 animations that you do or inputs that you do, you would shave a second off of your time. It's actually a pretty marked improvement in efficiency for the build. But starting off with the base 37 frames, or basically a half a second to cast any skill, we might be able to drop all the way down to 24 frames, nearly 3 casts per second. And the difference of those 13 frames is over a 33% increase in efficiency. It's kind of insane. So I'm really excited to try out this new version of optimization for the build. I will be tweaking these numbers again as the data becomes more and more finely understood. Thank you so much again to Ava, as well as everybody in GMS and the Sanctuary Discord for the amazing amount of work that they've been putting into actually getting attack speed breakpoints for all the skills in the game. Down in the bottom left, you can look at the starter, the leveling to 100 endgame and pit, and then speed farming variants for the build. Each one will have its own skill tree. And then what I would recommend is actually looking at the 4 embeds down here, because this is where you're going to see the entirety of the Paragon board, as well as every single step along the way. Obviously, it's in the build guide as well, but in the actual planner itself, this is where I have it currently coded. I was able to eke out a little bit more efficiency than what I had previously in my Paragon boards, basically just shaving off a point here or there, but it's significantly cleaner, a lot more damage is getting out of it. And with my most recent learnings from how to properly deaden into boards, you're going to notice like an incredibly efficient Scent of Death board down here, not wasting any additional points trying to make our way through here. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you go check out the build guide. Again, this is without question going to be the strongest Necromancer build walking into Season 5. We currently have it as the only Necro build up in S tier on the new Maxroll tier lists. And I expect this thing to be going toe-to-toe with the best builds in the game. So look forward to playing this build, look forward to a gameplay video the moment that I actually get into the season. I get the gear, I put it together so I can showcase it. And hopefully this build carries you to victory in whatever you're hoping to accomplish in Season 5. Thank you again for watching this video. I truly hope that it helps. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't already. You don't want to miss out on any Necro information as we get deeper and deeper into the season. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.